So for the fourth part of this problem, I made this little table here, partial table. We'll fill it out here in a second. They say under each alternative listed in requirement number 3, raising the or dropping the sales price, increasing variable costs, and increasing fixed costs, the company doesn't want to drop below $100,000 of profit, and so they want to know how many units do they have to sold to hit the $100,000. Um, and then we're asked to advise which way they should go. So what I've done is I've listed my sales price per unit under each alternative. In the first one, we've dropped our price by 8%. I've listed our variable cost per unit, and the only one that changed is scenario 2, where we increased it by 8%. And then my contribution margin is simply a factor of the sales minus the variable cost per unit, so you can see what that is. And then not lastly, I also put our fixed costs here. They don't change except in alternative 3. They went up by 8% for that advertising. And then we have a desired profit of 100 grand under each alternative. And so what that means is we have total fixed, you'll see why I'm putting this here in a second, total fixed costs and profit are going to be the fixed cost plus the profit, obviously. And so for each scenario, it's slightly different if you're in the third scenario versus the second or first. Let me just, shoot. I'm not going to put the lines around these boxes, even though my OCD is going to kick in here. But anyway, so we're trying to figure out the units we have to sell to break even. I'm going to show you a much quicker way than I've been writing out that laborious formula here. All I have to do is say, no longer are we looking to break even, we're looking to cover this much fixed cost and to cover this much profit. So the formula I can use is to take the total fixed costs and profit and divide it by the contribution margin per unit. And that tells me under scenario 1, 37,500 units is what it's going to take to hit that much profit. And I'll just carry this formula over to the other two scenarios. It's the same exact thing, which is the fixed costs and the profit divided by the contribution margin per unit. It requires selling less here under the second scenario because I have a higher sales price. Even though my variable costs go up, the difference between my contribution margin under the first and second scenario is that it's higher here. And then the third scenario says, I have to sell even fewer yet. That's because I have a much higher contribution margin under the third scenario as opposed to the other two, even though my fixed costs went up. So I guess there are several ways we could make a recommendation to management, as we could say, okay, strictly on a numbers game, it's easier to maximize profit or achieve the $100,000 of profit if you take on an advertising campaign. And so that would be a very good suggestion, would be to go with scenario 3. There's other sorts of qualitative variables that need to be taken into consideration here. If we do, for example, if we go with scenario 3, do we have, less superior variable costs because we're using a cheaper variable cost, and so does that mean fewer sales down the road? We don't know. That's all speculation. And are we going to eventually lose some sales because our sales price is higher compared to the scenario 1? That's hard to quantify. So we're going to stick with the quantified answer, which is let's go ahead and take scenario 3. Let's raise our fixed costs slightly, and that will allow us to hit the $100,000 profit with fewer sales.